Hello everyone. So now it's about 6 weeks since I got my printer, and I received a request for additional for a video on some of the newer jobs that I've done. So I thought that this is a good time to do a review of how the printer has been proceeding, and some of the problems I've had and some of the jobs that I've been doing. So these are all the failed prints. Now, if we go back to the failed prints, there are reasons for them and ways to improve quality. The most important is this sticking to the bed. This one started off very promising, but it started to peel away from the bed. So it took a while to work out what was causing that. I will get into all the details later on. This one also, you can see that it's starting to separate. The strands are not sticking together. Separation. That one got starved of filament. This was a little bracket to hold the Allen keys and the screwdriver on the machine. That one also, you can see it's like a spaghetti. I don't know what you call that. This one, it's similar to that, but the other half broke away. And that one, it's a design problem. It was too small, but that is a different type of filament. And this is also a design problem. So you can see there are various problems that can occur. So I've narrowed them down to 3 main issues. They are the bed, the extruder, and the slicer. Now if we come to the bed, the first and most important thing is to have your bed level. So what I mean is, this rod here is the x-axis, and that has to be the same distance from the bed on that side and the same distance on that side. So what I did is I used a ruler and you measure the distance. Let's say it's the other way around. '61. So you adjust that by hand winding these lead screws, because if one screw is longer than the other, that will tilt the whole thing and you will find it very difficult to level the bed. Now after that, you have to get your Z offset correct. So that's the second thing, the Z offset. That Z offset is the distance between the bed level sensor and the nozzle tip. So I found, using old credit cards that are flat, you set that gap. The sensor only triggers about 2 millimeters away from the bed, so you need to have that set to about 2 millimeters away from the bed, and then you'll find that the nozzle is a little bit lower than the sensor. So one of the first parts I printed was this bracket that holds that sensor, and you can adjust the level of the sensor so that you can't have it too high, because otherwise you won't be able to bring the bed down for the nozzle to touch the bed, and you can't have it too low because otherwise the nozzle will be too high. So it needs the sensor and the nozzle need to be about the same distance away from the bed. Then you set your Z offset by so what you do to set the Z offset is you bring the sensor down to touch zero the axis, and once it's at 0, you put your credit cards between the nozzle and the bed, and you measure that gap, and that becomes your Z offset, but it must be a minus. So I've got minus 2.3. That means when the sensor triggers, the bed will go down another 2.3 millimeters to Z0, to 0, the Z axis. So that is the 3 key points on the bed. 2, that's level and offset, and the third one is adhesion. Now if this doesn't stick, the first layer doesn't stick, then the whole print will start to peel away. So what I found the best thing is a bit of that glue stick. I just rub that onto the paper, and it's sticking perfectly, as you can see from this part here. That is the real test of the machine. It's 175 millimeters long, so it has to be absolutely flat and parallel, and your Z offset has to be perfect for all the layers to stick together. So those are the 3 things with the bed: the level, the offset, and the adhesion. The next comes to the extruder. Now some of those failed parts were due to problems with the filament temperature. Now the extruder is in 2 parts. This part with the air fins, with the round slotted grill, slotted cylinder there, is the upper part of the extruder, but the heated part that extrudes the actual filament is down here. Now the funny thing is, this should be hot, this part should be hot, but that top part needs to be cold, so you need to separate it, and I've got a cardboard piece here which made a big difference. So it blows the cool air from the fan straight across those cooling fins and keeps the top part cool, so the filament doesn't become soft when it's being pushed down by the extruder motor, which grabs the filament and pushes it through the tube. And the lower part needs to be hot so that the extruded filament sticks to the part that is being printed. So that shroud makes a big difference, and it's something that I've got to print out. That's one of my next print jobs. So these are some of the parts that I printed: the guards for the fans, a little holder for the screws, and I'm working on a guard for the power supply. cover for the power supply, and those are other cooling fans. So that's it. I'll leave you with some of the printing in progress, and I hope that has been helpful. Oh, the third key problem with printing is the slicer, the one that outputs your G code. Now if the slicer is no good, then you end up with problems like this, or not no good, but the slicer settings have to be right. This part is perfect, but when it did this, it didn't build rafts when it did the inside, and it's a bit of a mess, so I've got to tidy that up. But normally it should build a raft. When it's printing, it prints this way, and it needs to build a support between this surface and the top layer. Otherwise the top layer just becomes like that and collapses. So that is the settings. I might add all my settings later on to this in the instructions below. Why am I showing you a tattered old box? Well, the reason is, one of the questions I get asked all the time is, oh, what are you going to do with your 3D printer? Well, this is an example. This is an old box that I use to keep my needle files in. And now that I've got my printer working properly, I decided I would print this box, a replacement box. So here we are. This is the box being printed, exactly the same size, and you can see that a lot of the problems that I've had fine-tuning the printer have been settled, and this is using almost the whole size of the bed, and it will be 35mm high. I put a bit of cardboard there as a prototype to guide the air from the fans over the extruder, and that's another piece that I need to print out. I'll make a proper print for that. I printed out these hand guard. I'm printing a terminal cover for the power supply. Actually, I did that, but I had problems. This is one of the prototypes, but it was I had to change the design a bit. So that's the next project. Anyway, I'll come back when this job is nearly finished. Okay, thanks. Bye.